Welcome back to Invitation to the Cookout. We're here at Skylight Cinema, covering the Bentonville Film Festival. I'm here with my co-host, Alex McGowan. Also, I'm here with the director of the Paris 3, Miles Hannon, producer, Cree Claybrook, and two of the three brave young women who decided to sit down at a counter over 60 years ago that subsequently led them to being arrested and falsely accused of being a waitress. Miss Wita Allen and Miss Margaret Nichols. Well, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
You had it too.
I did have it. I did have
had
it.
it.
But thank you all. It's honored to sit down at the cookout with you all. Just we watched the film a few days ago, and so we wanted to sit down with you all and just kind of ask you some questions. And Cree, I'm gonna start with you. I know you said you grew up hearing the story from your granny. What did hearing this story? How did it empower you as a young lady and as a woman?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us. This is really amazing and an honor to be invited to the cookout.
Thank you for coming.
I grew up hearing the story from Granny, but I'll be honest that I heard it more as a joke. Granny would kind of just throw out there, at 14, I was arrested. And most people would have that exact reaction.
Yeah.
They would kind of chuckle. But I always wanted to know more. And I've always just been a curious person. Like she said, I've got a lot of my granny in me. And so I would always be asking, well, what do you mean? What happened? And so over the years, I would get more and more details. And I would come to the Western Reunion and I would meet the ladies, right? And I think that even subconsciously, as I grew, what the story did for me is it helped me to know that inside of me and in my family, I had people that when no one else was standing up for something, they did. And, throughout my life, there have been times where I've felt like I'm alone in needing to stand up for something that I know is right. But I always knew that if Granny and Miss Margaret and Miss Gus, as I call her, because she's my Aunt Gus, could do that at 14, that I really had no excuse not to do it myself. So it's been a constant source of inspiration for me. And I'm just so happy that we got to capture it so that other people can see that, because what we're finding, and hopefully what we'll hear from you, is that everybody watches it and then they start to think about their own family. And we all start to realize that each of us have these stories and the strength that we can pull from.
Miles, when did you first hear the story, and what made you feel like, hey, we need to get this on film? Like the world needs to hear this story.
No, that's a very good question. Really, my involvement came because of a relationship, which is often the way it is. And I didn't know much about it. I had a great relationship with somebody who did a lot of nonprofit films, and I was introduced through them. It was Art Erickson. I was introduced to Cree, and I just came along, and there it was. And it's one of those things. I don't think it's just by accident. I believe in destiny, and it was because I'd done humanitarian work in the past. When I heard the story, I just was attached to it. I felt like this was important to tell. And so yeah, I learned about it. And then I just went to work on, the story aspects of it. So yeah.
So there is a part in the documentary that we saw, and as you guys were kind of introing it, where, you talked about not sharing the story. You ladies talked about, not wanting to share the story and basically getting home afterwards and saying, we're not going to talk about this. What really turned it around and got you ladies to a place where you said, hey, this is something that's worthwhile for us to get out there?
Go ahead, Margaret.
Okay. Well, I never talked about it. Once I got home, my mother said, this is finished. And then I also got punished because I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to come straight home. And then so I never talked about it to my family or my friends. I just never talked about it. It was just something that happened, and that was it. And then Wita, when she moved back to Paris, Kentucky, she said, I think my granddaughter's going to make a documentary when we got arrested. And I thought, what? I didn't even want to talk to her about it. But every time we was at church, she'd come up with the same thing. So I talked to Gustine about it. She said, "Oh, don't pay no attention to Weeda." She said, "Because it'll never happen. But just go along. We'll just go along." And then one day she came and said, "Oh, my granddaughter has to fund it, and she's going to make it, and they'll be here." I still didn't believe it. I didn't believe it until the day I got over to her house, and they had to call to have me to come over there because I didn't even show up. So I did finally get there about 12 or 1 o'clock. I was late. And I saw these cameras and I thought,
What is going on?
what is going on? And so I still, I don't know, every time we do it, I'm still a little shaky about it. I still.
That's going to be my follow-up question. Like,
Yeah.
as you talked about it, because you've been silent for so long about it, like, what emotions stirred up in you as you told it? And did you find it therapeutic the more you talked about it, the more you shared?
The more we do it, the more I do feel better about it. But the second time I saw it, I think it was here in Benton, I cried. I sat there and actually cried because I had never done that before. I just shut it down.
Yes.
And so I talk about it, and now my children ask me about it. They encourage me to talk about it. And even the people that I work with.
Do you feel like that you talking and sharing with your family, like I know Cree talked a little bit about like feeling empowered, kind of wanting to know more about the story. Do you feel like your children and grandchildren are being empowered by hearing the story and like what their mother or grandmother did 60 years ago?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my children, especially my youngest son, he's very shy. He's a very person that steps out.
Okay.
Sees a problem, he steps out and deals with it. And he says he gets that from me, but I did not realize that I was that type of person.
Korea, my question is, and one thing we've talked about on the Cookout podcast, and as we have went through our journey, is that feeling of feeling like what we have is worthy of being heard, right? Just because in the way that things were set up, I think a lot of times people are like, hey, I'm not this person, right? Like I don't have this name, I don't have this title, status. Can you talk to, maybe some of the things that you were thinking through on your journey in terms of deciding like, hey, this is important, or were there some internal battles you had in terms of really getting to the point of wanting to do this?
Oh, definitely. So many. First, the biggest challenge, and Margaret kind of referenced it, was just getting them to feel comfortable to do the film. And that, by and large, is, again, based off of relationships and the relationships that the three of you had, right? And you've been friends for, I won't say the number, but for many, many years, And, I'm going to say kind of a lot of things. You guys will cut this and figure out how to mash it up. Good. But, there's so many special things about this film that I want people to take away. One, from this time and period of history, there are barely any stories recorded about women, much less girls, right? It's so important for our people, young people, anyone, to see that just some young girls thought, hey, this isn't okay, and decided to do something about it. That's really special and important because, to your point, often we feel like we have to become the biggest, best version of ourselves to do something. When in reality, each of us can do things no matter where we are, no matter what type of job or position we hold. And so that is so important. The other thing is just the relationship. In film, and that's why I love the Bentonville Film Festival, seeing yourself in film. Often when women see themselves in film, love the movie, but Mean Girls. You have a lead character and you have other women. Yeah. But see, there's no lead character in the Paris 3. Each of these women are strong. They have their own way. They have their own opinions, but they support each other. That we wanted people to see in the film, especially for our young people, right? To understand that you can support each other, and you winning, it doesn't take away from that person winning. Yeah. And so it's just, I don't know if I answered your question, but you did. It's so important. And I just knew that people had to see that. And I hope that people will watch the film and it will make them lean in. You know, when they hear someone tell that story or that funny joke at the cookout, that maybe they ask a few more questions, because what we've seen in, you know, therapeutic or healing, everybody deserves to heal. Everyone deserves to just feel heard. And I remember when we were at the courthouse, we were leaving the courthouse when we did the filming. And Gustine, who's not here, still living, just not here because her husband is ill. You know, she just said, wow, I never realized the weight that is lifted just because someone decided to listen to my truth. Didn't cost us anything to just sit there and listen. So such a reminder for all of us.
That's awesome. Granny, if I can call you Granny.
Everybody else
Everybody
does.
else knows, well, let the cookout. I'm calling you Granny.
We all family.
Yeah. Granny,
Yeah.
what was your initial feeling when you first sat down at the countertop, and then what was that feeling like when you guys were being arrested? Like, what was just that wave of emotions that you experienced in that time frame?
Well, when I sat down at that counter, you know, I was being defiant. My thing was, I'm going to show you, I'm going to sit here, whether you like it or not. But that was just me. And believe it or not, when we were arrested, I thought I was supposed to be the strong one, but honey, I was scared to death. And, you know, I would tell Gustine, don't you do that crying, stop that crying. But I was scared to death. My thing was, they're going to sit, when the judge says, I'm sending you to reform school. I heard all those nasty things about the reform school. I said, I don't want to go there. But Margaret and Gustine felt that we were going to be killed. Same as the man that stood behind that jail and protected us. But when I sat at that counter, my thing was I was being defiant, mean, hateful. You call it what you want to call it. But I was determined because I was angry about the ball game.
Well, you know, sometimes we have to be defiant because sometimes the systems in place aren't fair. So you have to be defiant. So were you the ringleader of the three? Like, are you the one, like, they always following you and you getting them into trouble, or vice versa? Like, how?
I don't think I was the ringleader, but I was the one that suggested.
this time, she's the one that suggested.
That suggested that we go to the bus station and sit down.
Yes.
Now, poor Margaret, she wasn't going at all, but she saw
But
this.
she listened to her parents. Well, she almost did.
She almost listened to her parents, but she saw this big crowd going to the bus station, so she wanted to know what was going on. And she got the worst of it. And she didn't know, it wasn't her, it was me that said, we're going to the bus station, we're going to sit down tonight. But she wanted to see what was going on, and she was the one that was hit.
And I'll give you guys just a little bit more context to that, because I think it's important as we think about this work. And when I say this work, what I mean is the work of humanity.
Yes.
The work of us actually, everyone's talking about, us coming together. This is the work that is required for us to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you look at someone like my grandmother, you hear this story and you think, okay, maybe she just did that at 14. But she's been doing things like this her entire life, right? She worked with Jerry Springer. She sued Saks Fifth Avenue successfully to make sure that underserved communities got 51% of the jobs, and not just entry level management positions as well. She's dedicated her entire life to social work, making sure that children have a voice. And that's, I think, another takeaway. If you really believe in humanity, then this isn't just something you do once or you just pop in or you pop out of.
Yeah.
It's something you commit your life to. And, you know, you might not show up in the defiant way that Granny does, but the important thing is to show up. And there's just not enough people showing up. And I hope that their story reminds people that when you show up and you do something that is scary, God is always going to send people to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And this film really reinforces that.
Can you give them a little background on reform schools, like what they were back in the day, and then also too, I want to get y'all a feeling of like when you heard that we were going to get sent to reform school, like what, how was that feeling?
We did a lot of research for the film, which I've come to find is pretty customary, when you're doing a documentary, because you want to make sure you can, to the best of your ability, interview parties and make sure that you're telling the story. And so reform school at that time, we're just maybe thinking about an alternative school. That's the closest thing I could connect it to. But these schools were very far away from where the families lived, which meant you weren't going to see your kids because you're working full time. You're probably working in domestic roles, so you're making very little. So one, you're just disconnected from your child. Two, a majority of the kids that went, they were never found again. They would just disappear or they would be found killed. So, hearing reform school is kind of like a death sentence. And, I'll reinforce this too. We're going to be moved at midnight. What positive happens at midnight with 14 and 16-year-old girls, right? We don't really know what that meant. That could have meant a hanging, which had happened before in Paris. That could have meant other things as you think about young women. I cannot imagine as a parent what was going through their minds. But, I want to hear from you all.
You two mind when you told like you were going to be moved to reform school?
Well, with me, I was scared to death because I'd heard stories. I mean, I had known a few of the boys they had gone, and they told horror stories, and some of them did escape, but they told horror stories about being raped, being beaten, not being given food. So I said, "Oh no, I don't want to go there. That's not for me." And I couldn't understand why. And I think that's the reason why my grandfather, Margaret's mother, and Gustine's mother said, "No, we can't let our kids go there, our girls go there. So we need to do something about it." So that's when they went to ask for the help from the people that they worked for.
One of the things that we talked about earlier in our the season, it was actually during Black History Month. We talked about legacy, and one of the pieces of commentary that Dom gave as we were talking about people is there's a lot of unnamed heroes
That's right.
throughout the U.S. that are the fabric of our history. And I think it would be fair to say that the Paris 3 is part of that fabric, or part of those heroes that we are and you are getting their names out there, so that people can hear that story. So I think that is very special and is very important, because as much as we love the MLKs, right? We love the Rosa Parks, we love the Harriet Tubmans. There are our unnamed heroes now that we want them to be saying their names. We want them to be part of, as people are hearing about that, they're like, "Hey, do you know about the Paris 3? This is their story." So I think that is so special. And then maybe a question for Miles is, one of the big pieces, and we saw throughout the civil rights movement, was allies, people who stood on the line with us. What were maybe some enlightening things or stuff that you learned along the way, working with them throughout this project?
I'm really glad you asked that question. And you're going to have to redirect me probably, because I want to point something out. And I don't know if y'all feel it's a little bit odd, but you have a civil rights story about 3 young Black girls, and I'm a white director. I mean, I feel like the white elephant in the room. Okay? I think about it. All right. But I really appreciate your question, because in order to engage in a story, you have to, in order to engage in a transformational story, you have to do your own transformation. And there was a point in this process between Cree and I, when we were trying to work this out, where we didn't know if we could do it. We didn't know if we could work together. And I would blame myself for that, not so much her. There was a point, I remember very distinctly, I was in my office, and an executive producer, Clay, sent me a note, said, "Hey, we got to get together." And I said, "Okay." And the way he wrote it was like, we're kind of in trouble here. It was between the lines. You know, he's very clever and he's, you know, but I can read between the lines. And at that moment, I decided that I was going to listen. I decided that, yeah, I'm the expert on story. And yeah, I know I can tell story, all this stuff, but there's an element here that I don't get. There's an element that I need to stop what I'm doing and just listen. Okay?
Yeah.
And that was transformational for me. And that was transformational for our team. And it's transformational for our audience. So here, I think that Black people understand what it's like to be Black. So you could tell this story all day long to Black people, and they're going to go, yeah, that's it. That's me. Yeah, I get it. This is what's happening today still. You white people don't get it. Right. So this, I think, I mean, we talked a lot about audience. Yes, the audience is Black, but it's also, I think, even more primarily white. It's white people that have a conscience. It's white people that are willing to listen. It's white people that are willing to have a transformation in their consciousness. That's what we're looking for. And it's not just one film. It's a series.
Yes.
Because you're not going to do this in one film. And this is something, you know, Carrie understood from the very beginning, because we were going to do a documentary. It was going to be, you know, 60 minutes. It was going to start with, you know, Granny's story. It was going to move into her story, which is amazing. You guys you just stand by, because it's amazing. Okay. But it was like, that's not enough. Okay, is people going to watch it and go, wow, they're going to eat their popcorn and go, okay. It needs to be layered. It needs attention, and it needs time, and it needs care. And so in our meetings together, I said, well, you know, we should do a series. We should do a series. And then the wheels started turning, and we started working together, and it was fantastic, because we thought about what kind of layers do we need to unpeel or bring out. And so we did that. And so, yeah, I want to say that this film, you know, needs to be seen by a broader audience. It needs to be seen by a wide audience. The wide audience needs to listen. That's what I would say.
And I personally want to thank you, you know, because I feel like those are words that we need to hear as a nation, you know, as we try to come closer to each other, and to the point that you kind of say, hey, we're inside the house, so we know the problem. We looking at each other and we like, when everybody outside the house gonna know it. And so I think you kind of sharing that sentiment, you know, gives a what they call a glimmer of hope, right? It gives you that little piece that says, hey, even throughout what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling, maybe the desperation I feel living in this country right now, there's hope. There's still hope that things can be in a better place, right? So I definitely want to thank you, you know, for being a part of this project and the sentiments that you shared.
Yeah. No. One other thing I'd add is that this men that we're trying to bring, this divide that we're trying to heal, is a microcosm for a macrocosm on a world scale. Because if we can heal at home, we can heal tension between soft and white people. Just start there, which is a really, really big deal. That model of listening and caring and treating and seeing other people as human beings, as another person, that can move and apply to everybody, everywhere. And that's what we're about.
Now, you mentioned that this was going to be a series. So can you maybe share a little bit, maybe Carrie or whoever wants to take it, in terms of like, what's next for the Pairs 3?
Yeah. Oh, there's just so much excitement. We've been doing film festivals across the country. We recently just came back, the ladies from Cote d'Ivoire in Africa, where we screened the film for Her Royal Majesty of Nigeria, the First Lady of Cote d'Ivoire, and about 2,000 participants from 5 continents. The film was translated into French. What a thing to see yourself talking in French. But people laughed at the same parts and they cried at the same parts. And so we're feeling that momentum. But what that is leading to Miles' point, is the series. And so as you think about the Pairs 3 itself, when you watch it, there's so much more you want to know. You want to know more about Mr. Carl Wade, the man that laid behind the jail. You want to know, what was that conversation like between their mother and those 3 white men that they worked for? Were they crying where they said, get down there tomorrow. What was that like? You just want more, right? And so every episode, in total, there are 9 episodes, will start with something that is covered in the original Pairs 3. And we expand it a little bit. But then what we do is we bring it to present day in the same way we did it in the Pairs 3, through stories, right? Through just simply hearing stories. And what you'll do is you'll follow the progression from 1961 to the present, but you'll also follow the progression from Granny to me. And ultimately, the central question in the entire series is, how do I become the Granny in my own story, right? People come and they watch the Pairs 3 and they fall in love with Granny and Miss Margaret and Miss Gus, and we love that. But by the end of the series, we want them to be looking inward. We want them to build a little bit more awareness of what the reality of the things that we're facing are. We want them to really be able to acknowledge that those things are still showing up, even though they may look different, but that they're still showing up today. And most importantly, we want them to take some action. And we want them to understand, as you see in the Pairs 3, that there are different roles. You don't have to be on the front line. You don't necessarily have to be the person leading the protest, but you've got to play some role. And if we really care about our future and the future for our kids and humanity, then that's something all of us need to do. And all of us have a little bit of Granny in us, and all of us have some strength to pull from. So that's really the series. We're working on it now. We still are in the process of getting funding, but I'm not even necessarily worried about us getting the funding. And that's not because fundraising is easy, because it's not.
No.
But it's because this thing is so pure. And, I say it in the film, when something is true and it's powerful, it cannot be stopped. And this story cannot be stopped because it's not just their story. It's all of our stories.
Well, we thank you all for accepting our invitation to the cookout. Before we leave, where can they follow the Pairs 3 as you guys make it into a docu-series?
Thank you so much. I always forget that. So you can follow us on Instagram, the Pairs 3. There's also a website called thedifferenceyoucanmake.com, which is linked in the bio of the Instagram. But that's so important because that's going to tell you more about what we're really trying to do, why we're doing a series. You can even see what all 9 episodes are titled, which is going to give you a really good idea of kind of what you can expect. But that is also where we'll update you on the progress. The other really great thing is that, to me, the best part about the film is that all 3 ladies are still with us.
Yes.
1, you get to hear it from them. But 2, it reminds you that it really wasn't that long ago. And so on the differenceyoucanmake.com or through Instagram, you can send us a DM. You can connect with us if you'd like us to come out for a screening. We've done it for corporate events. We've done it for nonprofits. We've done it for the elementary, the middle school, and the high school where they are in Paris. There's so many people that need to hear the story. And so let us know, and we'll be in a town near you.
Yeah. Well, we want to give you all your flowers while you're still here. So just thank you so much for your defiancy, for your bravery, just being willing to sit down and I guess buck the system per se. Also, too, at the cookout, we like to say you're gonna leave with more than food on your plate. So I'm gonna let you all give you all an opportunity. What do you want our audience to leave with, knowing about the Pairs 3 and just anything? I'll start with you. Just start you guys. Go ahead.
Sure. Just that there's more to come. There's more to come. There's a lot of work to do. Look at what we're doing. And I want to encourage a broader audience to take a look and to look at themselves and enjoy the journey.
I would just like to encourage us to be good neighbors.
Okay. Yeah.
Because if you're a good neighbor, you'll learn to respect one another. You accept the person the way they are.
Margaret said it all. I don't need to say any more because I'm a talker. So, but yeah, I'd say amen to that, Margaret.
Thank you, Rita.
Yes.
She was the littlest thing there, but she was the stronger. She kept being Gusty motivated and stop crying or don't be afraid. I said the littlest thing here, but she was the strongest of the 3.
I was scared to death. and
know it.
and I wouldn't let them know it, but they helped me along the way. I mean, they helped me a lot. You don't know what we in that jail cell. We sung Jailhouse Rock. We sung our school alma mater song. We sung church songs. I mean, we didn't want to go to sleep, so we sung all night long by looking out that window at Mr. Carl Wade Sr. with that double barrel shotgun protecting us.
Well, how do you follow that, right? I mean, I think what I want people to take away and think on is when you're out there in the world and you're looking for someone to be inspired by, it's easy to look at the next musical artist or actress that's on the screen, and they're amazing. I love them too. But sometimes the people that you should be looking to are right there in your home, around the table. And I just want people to really lean in with the people that are around them, because we come from such strength and resilience and just excellence.
Yes.
And we can all draw from that. And that's what I hope people really take away and think about is, who are the people that are around me that I've just been joking with for too long, that I really need to lock in while they're still here, to learn their stories, to understand better. Your son, he gets that from you. He does get that from you, right? To understand where these things come from, because they don't just happen for any reason. They're our destiny.
I'll let you close that out.
Well, we appreciate you guys, accepting our invitation to the cookout, coming and spending some time with us here today. One of the things that we talk about at the cookout is our platform is here for food, health, but culture. And this is part of the fabric of our culture. We are honored to be able to have you guys on our platform and to be able to share your story. And we know that you guys will continue to impact people as the series comes out, as you continue to travel near and far. So we just want to give you guys a sincere thank you from the cookout.
Thank you.
We appreciate our listeners, and we hope that you got something out of today. We'll see you next time.